Okay guys, we are back here at the joiner and I want to show you proper operating procedures for this. So what you're going to see is a couple of different things. I'm going to show you and demonstrate how to joint a face using push sticks, transferring pressure. I will show you how to joint the edge of a board that is shorter than the fence, and I will also show you how to joint the edge of a board that is taller than the fence. The last thing that we're going to talk about is what happens if your material gets caught on the outfeed table. And that can happen when you've got a really large defect that you're trying to remove from your piece of material. So those are the things we're going to take a look at. I'm going to get the dust collector turned on and we will get going here. So with the dust collector running, here I am back at the joiner. I am going to first demonstrate making a face cut. So the first thing that I need to do is I've got to get my machine cleaned up. Now that the machine is clean, I can check my fence for square. And I can verify my depth of cut, which currently is an 1/16 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch, which is exactly what I want. So I've got my board here, and I want to flatten out one of these faces. And whenever we joint, we want to make sure that we're jointing the best edge or the best face. The best edge or face is the one with the least amount of defect. So I'm going to set my board down on the table here, and I'm going to press on it and see how much it moves. This face is pretty good. It doesn't move very much. When I flip it this way, it's got a lot of corner-to-corner rock or twist in it. That's going to be a more difficult defect to remove at the joiner. So I'm going to put the other side, my best face, down, and then I'll remove the twist from the other side at the thickness planer once I've got a flat face. So I know which face is going to be my flattest. So I'm going to put that face down. I'm going to grab my push stick off the cart, and I'm going to get ready to make my cut. Now, when I run my board through to joint the face, I'm only concerned with keeping it flat on the table. I'm not concerned with keeping it tight against the fence because I'm not referencing against anything right now. All I'm doing is trying to flatten off that face. So, with my stuff in position, I can turn on the machine. And now I'm going to apply pressure. And like I talked about, you can see right here, I've got a lot of exposure to that cutter head. I've got to make sure I'm paying attention and keeping my hands firmly on my push stick. And as I run it through, I'm maintaining pressure down. Now, as my left hand gets past the cutter head, I'm applying downward pressure on the outfeed table to continue my cut. It's a loud and somewhat scary machine, but now that I'm on the outfeed table, I can check my material, and now I have no movement at all. This face is extremely flat and square and true. One pass is all it took. If I still had a little defect in this board, what I would do is just simply come back to my infeed table and line up and run again. There is no adjustment to make in between passes. So I'm finished jointing the face on this board, so I can turn off the machine. I'm going to return the push stick back to the cart right here where it belongs. I'm going to grab my air hose, and I'm going to clean up. And now I'm finished, and I can walk away. That's our process for joining a face. Let's take a look now at joining a board that's taller than the fence. So I've got my material here. I just jointed this face, and before I walk away, I actually want to mark the face that I've jointed. So I'm going to just throw an X on this board, and that's my reminder that this face is finished. I've already flattened it. What I don't want to do is head over to the planer and put this side up and cut it relative to a face that's not straight and true yet. So the X tells me I'm finished with this one. When I go to the planer, my X goes down and I cut the other side. It also tells me when I'm ready to joint an edge, the X has to go against the fence because that is my flat square face that I want to reference off of. So I'm going to find my best edge. When I set my board on here, this is rocking back and forth just a little bit. And that's a more difficult defect to eliminate than one where it doesn't rock. So the top edge of this board is convex, like this. It's an outside curve. The bottom edge of this board is a little bit concave. It's an inside curve. I want to put my concave side down. That's my best edge. It's the one with the least amount of movement because of the defect. I know which edge I'm going to joint. I know which face I'm going to put against the fence. I'm going to clean my machine. I'm going to verify my depth of cut, 1/16 of an inch. Perfect. I'm going to check my fence. Square. And now I'm ready to make my cut. Jointed face goes against the fence. My left fingers are pushing in against the fence right up here at the very top edge of the fence. I'm not pushing down until I get past the cutter head. Right hand on the back end, providing the power to move through, and I'm moving with my material. I'm not extending over the cutter head. With everything in position, I can turn the machine on. Make sure my fingers are in the right spot. And now I'm going to run this through. Now that my left hand is past the cutter head, I'm transferring my downward pressure to the outfeed table. And I'm checking visually, and I'm checking here for any movement. And that's all it took. One pass made that edge really nice and square. So I can turn my machine off. And if I grab the square off the machine and I set it on here, we can see that that piece, that this edge and this face are now perfectly square at 90 degrees to each other. Like with my face, I'm going to mark my edge. I want to make sure when I get to the table saw to square this board, I know which edge goes against the fence and which face needs to go down on the table. Now that I'm finished, I can grab my air hose, clean the machine, and I'm all set. Oftentimes, you might need to make 2 or 3 passes at the joiner, especially when we're flattening out faces, and that's okay. The thing to keep in mind is making sure that you've got enough material thickness that you're not going to make your board too thin at the joiner. If you are, we need to find a different piece of material for you. Now let's take a look at running the edge of a board that's shorter than the fence, because the process is just a little bit different. So here is my board. These are my edges that I'm looking at right now. And you can see that it's much shorter than my fence. And so I can't run it through like this. I've got to use push sticks. So I'm going to check and figure out which edge is my best edge. And this is the best edge. That's the one with the least amount of defect to it. I'm going to go through my setup procedures. I'm going to clean my machine. I'm going to verify depth of cut, 1/16 of an inch. And now I'm going to place my best edge on the table with my best face against the fence. I'm going to grab my push sticks off the cart. And I want to put my lead push stick on the corner of my board right here, so I can push both down onto the table and into the fence with it. I'm going to take my other push stick and just hook it on the back to provide power as I pass this through. Just like we saw before, as soon as my left hand is past the cutter head, I'm really pushing pressure down onto the outfeed table to give that nice straight edge relative to that outfeed. So let's see what this looks like. Right on the corner, pressure down on the table and into the fence. Right hand, bringing it up behind. Left hand is past the cutter head, so now I'm increasing my pressure on the outfeed table. After that pass, I check, and I've gotten rid of all of my defects, so that edge is now finished. I've got the machine powered off. I'm going to return my push sticks. I'm going to clean my machine. And now I'm all set. Now we do have a unique situation that some of you guys will encounter. And what happens is, because of the defect in your board, it's a large defect, as you run your piece through, your piece actually drops down a little bit after it's cut until it's contacting the infeed table right here. And that causes the end of your board to catch on the outfeed table. And so what we're going to do in that case, if that happens, we run our board through, it catches. What we need to do is we need to back very slowly, back out of our cut. There's no risk of kickback, or there's low risk of kickback in that case, because that material has already been removed. There's no material there. We're going to slowly back out of our cut. And then what we need to do is we need to take that leading edge and we need to bring it over to the outfeed table and drop it down slowly directly on the outfeed table. And then we can make our cut. And what this does is it removes enough material from the tailing edge of our board that it eliminates most of that defect. When we come back, you typically only have to do that one time, and then when I come back, I can run my board through and it goes through just fine. This is also a technique that we use if we need to cut a taper onto a board. If we need it to be a little bit narrower at this end than at this end, we can land the end that we want the fats to stay wide on the outfeed table and cut it, and it'll just slowly cut a little bit more and a little bit more until it gets to the back end where it's cutting a full 16th off. So let's take a look at what it looks like to land our board on the outfeed table. I'm going to show you a couple of different views, one from back there. Then I'm going to bring the camera and look overhead so you can see what's happening. So my table is clean. I've verified squareness and depth of cut. I'm going to turn on my machine. I've got to get my push sticks ready. Okay? And I need one push stick on the outfeed table. And my other push stick I'm going to just have in position right here. With my hands, I'm holding back away from the cutter head. And I've got the board opening the guard up so I can see. And right there, I'm going to land on the outfeed table. So now I'm going to slowly lower this down. And I've got a firm grip with this push stick. Now I can grab on and get my pressure down and make my cut. Okay? Let's take a look at that from overhead looking straight down. So looking down from above, again, I've got my push stick ready on my outfeed table. I've got my push stick on my board on the infeed. And with my fingers back away from the cutter head, I'm going to bring it in until it's going to land on the outfeed table. So right there, it's going to land on the outfeed. I'm going to lower it down slowly. Grab my push stick. And now I can continue my cut. I can turn off my machine, return my push sticks, and get cleaned up before I walk away. So those are our proper operating procedures at the joiner. Again, when you find yourself in a position where you've got to make that unique cut, where you're landing the end of your board on the outfeed table to eliminate a large defect or to make a taper in your board, please come find me. the first time you do it, because it's a little bit scary that the first time you make that cut. But as long as you're keeping your hands back away from the cutter head and working through those steps that I've laid out for you, there's no reason that you can't do that in a safe manner. And that is how we're going to use the joiner in our woodworking classes, primarily as part of our machine squaring process.